The students are always amazed at how fast time flies, especially when they are in grade 11 and 12. That's one aspect of the perception of time I want to talk about in this section. Then, when you are young, you feel that somebody who is 30, 40, they are really old, and you just wonder whether you are ever going to reach that age because it seems to be so far away. I'm sure you felt that way when you were young also. For those of you who are reading and are older, you have another different perception of time. Over the years, as you grew older, times have a different perception. It seems that what you thought was eternity was not so far away, and 10 years or 20 years down the line isn't that far. Another perception of time you have is that when you are 30, 40, 50, 60, then you realize that you are not that old as you had imagined earlier when you were young. Why is that so, and what has it got to do with studies? This is what we're going to explore in this section. When we perceive time as longer than it actually is, then we tend to procrastinate more and delay our actions further down the line in time. This means that if you are a student and your exams are, let's say, in a year's time, and in your mind it's a very long period of time, then you will plan accordingly and delay your preparation for a very long time. And then suddenly that year would have passed, and you are faced with an exam for which you have no preparation. So this section is very important for students at a philosophical level. The findings that I have made for this book have not been validated through a scientific study, but I'm sure that somebody will do it if they get hold of this book. As a writer, I've got to understand my limitations, that I can't be doing everything. Sure, lots of people will not find my work credible because it is not backed up with research. But then that is the job of somebody else, I believe. My job as a writer is to create postulates. Then, if it appeals to some scientist and researcher, then they should further investigate. Again, as I've been telling you earlier on, also, I do not seek the credit for my work, but if you give it to me, if you use my work, it would be very appreciated. I believe in the propagation of knowledge without boundaries, and that people are able to find the truth is more important than me getting any credit. In order to understand this perception of time phenomenon that I'm just talking about, you will have to understand the diagram that is provided here. It looks a bit daunting, but it's nothing like that, so do not worry. I will first explain how to read that diagram, and then I will explain the interpretation you can derive from it. Finally, I will go to the application of the findings from this diagram. First, you have a table on your left hand side. It consists of 6 columns. The first column represents the various age groups. The second column is a calculation for the ratio, which I will explain in a short while. The third column is the perception that somebody in that particular age group has about what 1 year feels like. The second column is what 5 years feels like to that age group. Similarly, the third and fourth columns represent what 10 years and 20 years feel like, respectively. Next, you have 10 rows of age groups. I'm starting from 0 and ending at 90 years old. Some age groups have 16 years gap, another has 8 years, and another has 10 years age gaps. Again, there is nothing scientific about that, but just a convenient way to categorize the age groups. Now let us understand the second column, which is very important for understanding this concept of time. So let's take an example of the first row. I have written the ratio 1 divided by 16. What it means is that for a person in that age group, the perception of 1 year can be compared for that age group only to the extent of its highest lived life. Here it is 16. Then I make it into a percentage and it becomes 6.3. So what it means is that for somebody who is 16 years old, the perception of 1 year is 6.3 years. Now if that person was 100 years old, the ratio would be 1 divided by 100 into 100. So for somebody who is 100 years old, the perception of 1 year will definitely be 1 year. So that would be the perfect match of actual time and the perception of time. Then continuing on the first row itself, look at the second column, which represents the perception of 5 years. We multiply the number 6.3 into 5 and you get 31.5. So for somebody who is 16 years old, 5 years seems to be 31 years away. That's a very long time. Similarly, 10 years is perceived as 63 years away. Then 20 years is, in his mind, 126 years away. The reason is that for them, the maximum frame of reference that they have is the life that they have lived, which is here 16. So they will compare everything based on what they have lived so far. And that is how you get those numbers. You can repeat the same process for the other 9 age groups. Then as you will notice, the perception of the years move towards 1 as we grow older. The same for the person of 5 years, which moves towards the actual 5 years as we move downwards to higher age groups. Now, this tabular data is represented in a line diagram. The first one represents how 1 year is perceived across the 10 age groups. As you can see, it decreases exponentially towards 1. The second diagram shows the data for the perception of 5 years. It starts with 31 years when you are 16 and 28 years when you are 18, and so on. The third diagram represents the perception of 10 years, and the fourth diagram represents 20 years. You will notice that in each of the diagrams, the graph has got a similar shape or slope. So now that you have understood this diagram, let me try to explain what it means. The younger we are, the more time seems to be elongated. Then the older we get, the more times seems to become shorter. For example, now I am 50 years old, so I will look in the respective age group. For me, 1 year seems like 2 years. 5 years seems like 10 years. 10 years seems like 20 years. And 20 years seems like 40 years. So I am still overambitious about the time I have left to live on this earth, the time I have to leave a legacy behind, the time I have to give for my family, the time I have to take care of my health. So basically, this over optimism will lead into a state whereby I am caught in a situation whereby I realize that there is no more time. Again, I'm talking for myself at 50. It's like I have an estimation that a certain project will be completed at the budget of X rupees. But as the project is completed, the required cost becomes 2x. The problem is I don't have that extra X. So I run a deficit. This means that I will not be able to do half the things that I thought I would do. Either I will not be able to take care of my health because I thought I had time and I took all my effort into building a career, or it could be the other way around. I thought I had time for both building a career and seeking enlightenment, but in the end, if for example I had trodden the path of enlightenment, I would have had missed my career's bus or train or plane. That is figuratively speaking. Now, when you are younger, that x becomes not only 2x but up to 5x if you are 18. So you will lose out 5 more things than you wished you had completed. This makes a lot of sense because when you were young, we feel that the sky is the limit and we can do many things. And as we grow older, we narrow down our own ambitions. For the student, it usually appears like they think that they have only X amount to study, but by the end of the first year, they realize that they have 5X amount to study and they had only planned for X. In this way, it never seems to be enough how much they study towards the end because they cannot recuperate that lost 4X studies that they should have done. Now, this is the interpretation of this diagram. I want to talk about how you can apply that into your day-to-day life, especially in your studies. Now that you have at least a concept of why is it that you perceive time in the way you do, you need to disbelieve your own perception and realize that you are being too optimistic about time. Time will fly. So your best approach is to get serious as soon as possible for your studies and exams. Do not believe in your perception of time because it is flawed, as you have seen in this diagram. You have to make plans according to this model of time that I've given you. It's pretty much like you watch the rear view mirror in your vehicle. You have to estimate the distance of the vehicle and walls behind you, even though it's not the actual scale. But through practice, you will be able to make the correct estimate without banging on the vehicle or the wall behind you. Similarly, when you are steering a wheel, you adjust by hit and trial. You determine how much of the wheel you must turn to get your car turned to a certain extent. Even in a car, the faster you go, the more distance is covered in a narrow change of angle of your steering wheel. So time is similar. When I first made this discovery about this concept, it made so much sense to me. What I did after that is to look at 1 year as really 1 year and the coming 20 years as really 20 years. Not more, not less. This has helped me make the proper plans and take the proper actions. It also helped me not to be too optimistic about time and the time I have left. For the younger people among you who are reading this book, the coming 20 years seems to be like forever, 100 years more into time. However, the 20 years will pass as they should, like 20 years. By not studying or not doing your duty as a student when you're supposed to study, you are estimating that you have an unlimited time ahead of you, but there's nothing such as unlimited time. It's just your perception of it. So by all means, develop the correct perception of time. Remember, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years will come much sooner than you had imagined. And then you'll look back in time and think how time flew. It would have been great if you were prepared for it. So in this section, I try to motivate you into loving your studies, because that will prepare you for the future. In many ways, you are much better off having understood math and English when you are in your 30s looking for a promotion than if you had flunked in those subjects. Maybe you will be starting a company, and what you did when you were below 18 will make a huge difference in how much success you will get at that later period in your life. The more effort and time you had given to your studies, the better you'll be able to make strategies, understand the market, understand your own company, the various parameters that affect the success of your company. Certainly, advanced mathematics like calculus and complex numbers must definitely be useless, you think. You are right, but the process that you went through in solving those mathematical problems will help you solve the real life problems that you will face in your later years. It's all about logic and rational thinking. I will talk more about the importance of the various subjects in the development of your cognitive skills later on throughout this book. So I will limit my explanation on the use of various subjects for the success in later years here at this point. But I want to end this section by emphasizing that you don't have forever to master knowledge and to develop your brain's capacity. Life isn't as long as you think it's gonna be. Time will fly, and I have given to you at least some kind of scientific way to think about it, although it is not yet proven in any ways through experimentation. Think about what you learned in this section, and I remind you again, you're not going to be young forever.